Sarah loved her life. She had a cozy house in a quiet, tree-lined neighborhood, a fulfilling job as a librarian, and, most importantly, her son, Billy. Billy was 6, full of energy, and had an imagination that could fill 1,000 storybooks. Their days were filled with laughter, trips to the park, and bedtime stories. Then Billy started drawing. It began innocently enough. One night, he asked for paper and crayons before bed. Sarah thought nothing of it, happy to encourage his creativity. But the next night, he asked again, and the night after that. Each time, he drew the same thing, a house. Not just any house, but a very specific one. An old, looming Victorian with a tall, pointed tower. It looked like something out of a spooky fairy tale. The house in Billy's drawing was always dark except for a single, glowing window at the very top of the tower. It was odd, but Sarah figured it was just a phase, a figment of his active imagination. The house in Billy's drawings was always the same, a carbon copy night after night. It was a grand, but clearly neglected, Victorian. The paint peeled like sunburnt skin and the roof sagged in places. The tower, the house's most striking feature, was topped with a weather vane shaped like a raven. An overgrown garden surrounded the house, choked with weeds and thorny bushes that seemed to claw at the walls. But the most unsettling detail was the light. Always on, always in the same top window of the tower. It cast a long, eerie glow that stretched across the dark sky in Billy's pictures. Sarah tried to rationalize it. Maybe he saw a house like that in a book or on TV. Kids picked up the strangest things. Still, the consistency of the drawings, the specificity of the details. It was starting to feel a little unnerving, a prickle of unease under her skin. She told herself it was nothing, just a kid being a kid. The drawings weren't just a phase. They intensified. The lines became sharper, the details more intricate. Billy started adding things, a broken swing hanging from a gnarled tree, a chipped gargoyle perched on the roof. He wasn't just drawing the house anymore. He was observing it. Then came the talking. "The sad lady wants me to come over, Mommy," he'd say, his voice small and serious. "She's lonely." Sarah's unease deepened into genuine worry. "What sad lady, Billy?" she'd ask, trying to keep her voice light. "The one in the house," he'd reply, pointing at his latest drawing. "She's waiting for me." He spoke about the house as if it were real, as if he'd been there before. He described the creaking floorboards, the dusty smell, the way the light flickered in the tower window. Sarah started losing sleep. The drawings were no longer cute, they were disturbing. This was more than just an overactive imagination. Something wasn't right. Desperate for answers, Sarah started searching. She spent hours online, poring over websites dedicated to local history and architecture. She looked at countless pictures of Victorian houses in the area, hoping to find a match, something to explain Billy's obsession. But nothing. None of the houses resembled the one in his drawings. They were all too well maintained, too normal. She tried talking to Billy again. "Where is this house, sweetie?" she asked gently. "Can you show Mommy?" He just shook his head, his eyes wide and a little scared. "Far away," he whispered. "Past the woods." The woods. There were woods on the outskirts of town, but they were small, easily accessible. She couldn't imagine a house like that hidden so close by. The mystery deepened, wrapping around Sarah like a cold, suffocating blanket. She felt a growing sense of dread, a premonition that something terrible was about to happen. Billy wasn't the same anymore. The spark in his eyes had dimmed, replaced by a quiet, unsettling sadness. He stopped playing with his toys, stopped laughing at his favorite cartoons. He became withdrawn, spending hours staring out the window, lost in his own world. Nightmares plagued him. Sarah would rush into his room to find him screaming, tangled in his sheets, crying about the sad lady and the dark house. "She's calling me, Mommy," he'd sob. "She wants me to come." Sarah's anxiety reached a fever pitch. She couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. She saw the fear in Billy's eyes, the genuine distress. This wasn't just a game, this was something real, something terrifying. She had to do something. She couldn't stand by and watch her son slip away, consumed by this haunting. She feared for his well-being, for his sanity. She had to protect him, even if she didn't know what she was protecting him from. The breaking point came one terrifying night. Sarah woke to a creaking sound. She crept out of bed and found Billy standing by the front door, his hand on the doorknob. He was sleepwalking. His eyes were open but unfocused, like he was looking at something miles away. "Billy," she whispered, but he didn't respond. He just kept mumbling, a string of numbers and street names. It was an address. An address that meant nothing to Sarah, yet Billy repeated it with chilling precision. It was the address of the house from his drawings. Sarah's blood ran cold. This wasn't just a dream, a fantasy. This was something pulling at him, something real and dangerous. She couldn't ignore it anymore. She had to find that house. She had to know what was happening to her son, even if it meant facing something horrifying. She had to protect him, no matter the cost. The next morning, armed with the address Billy had mumbled in his sleep, Sarah set out. She left Billy with her sister, telling her she had an errand to run. She didn't want to scare Billy, not yet. As she drove, the familiar suburban landscape gradually gave way to rolling hills and sprawling farmland. The further she went, the more isolated she felt. The GPS signal grew weaker, the roads narrower and more winding. Hours passed. The sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long, eerie shadows across the fields. The houses became fewer and farther between, replaced by dense forests that seemed to press in on the road. An unsettling silence descended, broken only by the hum of the engine and the occasional rustle of leaves. A shiver ran down Sarah's spine. The landscape was beautiful, but it felt wrong. Like she was entering a place that wasn't meant to be found. A place where secrets were buried deep. Finally she saw them, the woods. A dense, dark forest loomed on either side of the road, the trees gnarled and twisted like ancient sentinels. It felt like the edge of the world. She hesitated for a moment, a wave of fear washing over her. But she couldn't turn back now. Taking a deep breath, she turned onto a narrow, unpaved road that disappeared into the trees. The drive was tense and slow, the car bumping and rattling over the uneven surface. Then, through the trees, she saw it. The house. It was exactly as Billy had drawn it, down to the last detail. The towering Victorian, the peeling paint, the overgrown garden, the raven-shaped weather vane, and yes, the single light glowing eerily in the top window. It stood silhouetted against the darkening sky, dilapidated and menacing. A wave of nausea washed over Sarah. It was real. All of it. And she was here. Sarah parked the car at the end of the drive, her headlights illuminating the house in an eerie glow. She got out, her legs shaky, and cautiously approached the overgrown garden. The air was thick with the smell of damp earth and decaying leaves. The once beautiful flowers were now withered and brown, their petals scattered like forgotten dreams. Thorns snagged at her clothes as she made her way towards the front door. She looked up at the tower window. The single light still shone, a beacon in the darkness. It seemed to pulse with a faint, rhythmic flicker, like a heartbeat. A shiver ran down her spine. It was just like in Billy's drawings. Every detail, every shadow, every unsettling nuance was perfectly replicated in reality. The feeling of dread intensified, a heavy weight pressing down on her chest. She knew, with a chilling certainty, that something was waiting for her inside. Before trying the door, Sarah peered through one of the grimy windows. The glass was so dirty she could barely see inside, but after a moment she made out a shadowy figure moving in the dim light. It was too far away to discern any details, but the sight sent a jolt of pure terror through her. An overwhelming sense of dread washed over her, making it hard to breathe. Then her eyes focused on something else in the room. A child's rocking horse. It was old and worn, its paint chipped and faded, but it was undeniably a rocking horse. And not just any rocking horse. It was identical to the one Billy had as a baby, the one that had mysteriously disappeared years ago during a family vacation. Sarah gasped, her heart pounding in her chest. How could that be here? This wasn't just a coincidence, this was something far more sinister. Taking a shaky breath, Sarah reached for the front door. She hesitated for a moment, her hand trembling. Should she really do this? Was she prepared for what she might find inside? But she couldn't turn back now. Billy was counting on her. She turned the knob. It clicked softly and the door swung inward with a long, mournful creak. It was unlocked. Sarah stepped inside. The air was thick with dust and cobwebs, the smell of decay heavy in her nostrils. The house was dark and silent, save for the faint creaking of the floorboards under her feet. A palpable sense of sadness hung in the air, a weight that pressed down on her soul. It felt like a place where joy had long been forgotten, a place haunted by loss and regret. She had entered the heart of Billy's nightmare. Sarah moved cautiously through the house, her footsteps echoing in the silence. She explored the living room, the dining room, each room more dilapidated than the last. In the living room, she found a collection of old photographs scattered across a dusty table. She picked one up, her heart skipping a beat. It was a picture of a woman, her face framed by dark, curly hair. The woman had a sad, wistful expression in her eyes. It was the sad lady Billy had described. Upstairs, in what must have been a child's bedroom, she found more unsettling discoveries. Old, forgotten toys lay scattered on the floor, a doll with a missing eye, a set of wooden blocks, a tattered teddy bear. And then she saw them, drawings. Drawings that were eerily similar to Billy's, depicting the same house, the same tower, the same single light in the window. The drawings were old, faded, but undeniably connected to her son's obsession. A chilling realization dawned on Sarah. Billy wasn't just imagining things. He was seeing something real, something from the past. Just as Sarah was about to leave the room, she heard it. A faint sound, coming from above. A soft, rhythmic creaking like a rocking chair. It was coming from the tower. The light. Her heart pounded in her chest. She knew she had to go up there, even though every instinct screamed at her to run. She found the staircase leading to the tower, a narrow, winding flight of stairs that looked as though they might collapse at any moment. Taking a deep breath, she began to climb. Each step creaked and groaned under her weight, the sound echoing through the silent house. The air grew colder, the darkness more intense. With each step, her heart pounded harder, a frantic drumbeat against her ribs. She was getting closer to the source of the sound, closer to the truth, closer to whatever was waiting for her in the tower. At the top of the stairs, Sarah hesitated, her hand on the doorframe. She took a deep breath and pushed the door open. The tower room was small and circular, lit only by the single lamp in the window. And there, sitting in a rocking chair, was an elderly woman. She was thin and frail, her face etched with wrinkles, but her eyes were bright and piercing. She looked up at Sarah, her eyes filled with a deep, profound sorrow. The rocking chair creaked softly as she spoke, her voice raspy but clear. "Sarah," she said. Sarah froze, her blood turning to ice. How did she know her name? The woman smiled sadly. "Welcome," she whispered. "I've been expecting you." "Don't be afraid, Sarah," the woman said, her voice gentle. "I am not here to harm you or Billy." Sarah found her voice, though it trembled slightly. "Who are you? How do you know my son?" The woman smiled sadly. "I am Eleanor, Billy's great-grandmother. I died many years before he was born." Sarah stared at her, speechless. "But that's impossible." Eleanor sighed. "Perhaps, but some connections transcend time and death. I have always felt a special bond with Billy. I have been watching over him ever since he was a little boy. I wanted to connect with him, to let him know that he is loved." She paused, her gaze distant. "He is a very special child, Sarah. He can see things that others cannot." "I know I frightened him," Eleanor continued, her voice filled with remorse. "That was never my intention. I was simply lonely. This house has been empty for so long, and I wanted someone to remember me. I saw Billy's kind heart, his open mind. I hope he would see me, remember me, and perhaps ease my loneliness." She looked at Sarah, her eyes pleading. "I never meant to cause him any harm, Sarah. I just wanted to be remembered. I wanted him to know that he came from a long line of people who loved him, even those he never met. I hoped that by drawing the house, he would somehow feel connected to his family, to his history. I just didn't want to be forgotten." Eleanor reached into a small, hidden compartment in the wall and pulled out a wooden box. It was old and worn, its surface covered in faded carvings. "These," she said, her voice barely a whisper, "tell my story." She opened the box, revealing a collection of old letters and photographs. Sarah gently picked up a letter, its paper yellowed and brittle. The handwriting was elegant and flowing, filled with words of love and longing. The photographs showed Eleanor as a young woman, radiant and full of life, often posed with a handsome soldier. As Sarah looked through the box, a tragic story unfolded, a tale of lost love, wartime separation, and a lifetime of quiet sorrow. Eleanor had waited her whole life for her beloved to return, but he never did. The house became her prison, her loneliness her constant companion. Eleanor smiled, a peaceful expression spreading across her face. "Now that you know my story, I can finally rest," she said softly. "Knowing that Billy is loved and cared for brings me great comfort. He is a good boy, Sarah. A very special boy." She reached out and took Sarah's hand, her touch surprisingly warm. "Please, tell Billy about me. Tell him about his great-grandmother, who loved him very much even before he was born. Tell him about the house, about the letters, about the soldier who never came home. Let him know that he is part of something bigger, something that spans generations. Keep my memory alive in his heart." "I promise, Eleanor," Sarah said, her voice thick with emotion. "I will tell Billy everything. He will know about you, about your love, about your story. Eleanor smiled, her eyes closing peacefully. Thank you, Sarah, she whispered. Thank you. Sarah stood for a moment, watching as Eleanor's form began to fade, becoming translucent like a wisp of smoke. The rocking chair creaked one last time, then fell silent. The light in the tower window flickered, dimmed, and then went out completely, plunging the room into darkness. Sarah knew, with a certainty that settled deep in her soul, that Eleanor was finally at peace. Goodbye, great-grandmother, she whispered. Then Sarah turned and walked back down the stairs, leaving the darkness behind. Sarah returned home late that night, exhausted but filled with a strange sense of peace. The first thing she did was go to Billy's room. He was asleep, his face relaxed and peaceful. The next morning, she sat him down and told him everything, about the house, about Eleanor, about the letters, about the soldier who never came home. Billy listened intently, his eyes wide with wonder. When she finished, he was silent for a moment, then he smiled. I knew it, he said softly. I knew she was there. He seemed relieved, comforted. That night, he didn't draw the house. Instead, he drew a picture of a sunny field filled with flowers. He started drawing other things too, animals, trees, his friends. The haunted look in his eyes was gone, replaced by a spark of joy and creativity. He was happy, at peace. The nightmares stopped. Sarah made sure that Eleanor's memory lived on. She often told Billy stories about his great-grandmother, about her kindness, her love of flowers, her unwavering spirit. She showed him the letters and photographs explaining the story of the soldier who never came home. Billy loved hearing these stories. He would ask questions about Eleanor, wanting to know every detail about her life. He felt a connection to her, a sense of belonging that he had never felt before. The experience brought Sarah and Billy closer together. They shared a secret, a bond that transcended the ordinary. And Billy learned that even though people may be gone, their love and their stories can live on forever. He understood that he was a part of something bigger than himself, a family that stretched back through time, filled with love, loss, and enduring hope. One afternoon, Sarah found Billy sitting at the kitchen table, drawing. She smiled, remembering the fear and anxiety that his previous drawings had caused. She walked over and looked at his new picture. It was a beautiful scene. Billy and Eleanor were in a sunny garden, surrounded by flowers. They were both laughing, their faces radiant with joy. Eleanor was young and vibrant, just like in the old photographs. A sense of peace and understanding washed over Sarah. The horrifying mystery that had consumed them had transformed into a touching family story, a testament to the enduring power of love and connection. The darkness had faded, replaced by the light of remembrance. The end.